The story of Jack the Ripper, shadows in the fog. In the autumn of 1888, the East End of London was a place of crushing poverty, overcrowding and despair. Whitechapel and its neighbouring districts like Spitalfields were home to tens of thousands of souls packed into narrow, filthy alleys and crumbling tenements. Over 80,000 people lived in a few square miles, many of them immigrants fleeing hardship in Ireland or pogroms in Eastern Europe. Families crammed into single rooms. Disease was rampant. 55% of children born in the area died before the age of 5. Work was scarce and poorly paid. For many women, the only way to afford a bed for the night in a common lodging house, which cost 4p, or even a spot on a rope to lean against for 2p, was through casual prostitution. Gin shops offered escape, but violence and robbery were everyday realities. The streets were dimly lit by gas lamps, shrouded in thick fog from the Thames and factory smoke. It was into this dark labyrinth that a monster stepped forward, a killer whose crimes would shock the world and whose identity would remain a mystery for over a century. His name, given to him by a taunting letter, was Jack the Ripper. The terror began in the early hours of Friday, August 31st, 1888. Mary Ann Nichols, known to her friends as Polly, was 43 years old. Born Mary Ann Walker in 1845, the daughter of a blacksmith, she had married William Nichols, a printer, and had 5 children, but alcoholism and domestic troubles led to separation. By 1888, she was living in and out of workhouses and doss houses, earning what she could on the streets. On the night of her death, she had been turned away from a lodging house on Thrall Street because she lacked the 4p for a bed. She was last seen alive around 2:30 a.m. near Whitechapel Road, walking unsteadily after drinking. At about 3:40 a.m., her body was discovered by a carman named Charles Cross in Bucks Row, now known as Durwood Street. Her throat had been slashed twice with a long, sharp blade, nearly severing her head. There were deep, jagged cuts to her abdomen, exposing her intestines. Remarkably, there was very little blood at the scene, suggesting the killer had attacked swiftly and perhaps controlled the bleeding. Police surgeon Dr. Rhys Ralph Llewellyn examined the body and noted the precision of some of the wounds, indicating the killer might have had some anatomical knowledge or a steady hand, possibly from butchery or surgery. Polly's murder was brutal, but at first it was seen as just another violent death in a dangerous district. 1 week later, the killer struck again. On Saturday, September 8, 1888, Annie Chapman, 47 years old, met her end. Annie, born Annie Eliza Smith in 1841, had a more stable past. She married John Chapman, a coachman, and had 3 children, though 2 died young. After her husband's death and struggles with illness and drink, she too fell into poverty, living in lodging houses and occasionally selling goods or flowers. She was known as a quiet, intelligent woman. On the morning of her death, she had been ill and was trying to find money for her bed. She was last seen around 5 a.m. near 29 Hanbury Street in Spitalfields. Her body was discovered shortly after 6 a.m. in the backyard of that address by a resident. Her throat was cut from ear to ear. Her abdomen had been brutally opened. Her intestines were removed and placed over her left shoulder. Parts of her uterus and other organs were taken away by the killer. The murder occurred in a busy yard with people sleeping nearby, yet no one heard a sound. Witnesses later described seeing a man with a foreign appearance or wearing a dark coat in the vicinity. The newspapers began to sensationalize the crimes, dubbing the killer the Whitechapel murderer. Panic started to spread through the East End. As fear gripped the area, taunting letters began arriving at the Central News Agency and Scotland Yard. Hundreds of letters were received, most hoaxes, but a few stood out. On September 27th, the famous Dear Boss letter was received. It read in part, "Dear Boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled. Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope, ha ha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do get to work, then give it out straight. My knife is so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. The letter promised to clip the victim's ears, a detail that partially matched the next murder. A follow-up Saucy Jackie postcard on October 1st referenced the double event and matched the handwriting. While many experts believe these were hoaxes, possibly by a journalist, they gave the killer his infamous name and fueled public hysteria. The nightmare escalated on the night of Sunday, September 30th, 1888, known as the double event. First, Elizabeth Stride, 44 years old, known as Long Liz. Born Elizabeth Gustafsdotter in Sweden in 1843, she had come to London, worked as a domestic servant, and lived with a man named Michael Kidney. She had a history of hardship, including time in workhouses. Around 12:45 a.m. to 1 a.m. in Dutfield's yard off Berner Street, her throat was cut in a single clean slash while she was likely standing. No further mutilations were performed. Witnesses reported seeing her with a man shortly before. It is believed the killer was interrupted, perhaps by a witness or a cart entering the yard, forcing a quick escape. Less than an hour later, in Mitre Square, Catherine Eddowes, 46, was murdered. Kate, as she was called, was born in Wolverhampton in 1842. She had a lively personality, lived with a partner named Thomas Conway, and had children. She sold goods on the streets and struggled with drink. After being released from police custody earlier that night for drunkenness, she was last seen around 1:35 a.m. with a man. Her body was found at 1:45 a.m. by a policeman. Her throat was slashed. Her face was mutilated, nose cut, eyelids nicked. Her abdomen was opened, intestines removed and placed over her shoulder. A kidney and uterus were taken. A piece of her apron was cut away and later found in Galston Street with chalk writing above it, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Police erased the message fearing anti-Semitic riots in the heavily Jewish area. The killer had struck twice in one night, evading heavy police patrols. The final canonical victim was Mary Jane Kelly, the youngest, around 25 years old. Known as Marie Jeanette Kelly, little is known of her early life. She may have come from Ireland or Wales and had a more stable room in Miller's Court off Dorset Street, one of the worst slums. She was described as pretty and vivacious. On the night of November 8th to 9th, 1888, she was seen with a man. Her body was discovered around 10:45 a.m. on November 9th by her landlord's assistant, Thomas Bowyer. Because she was killed indoors, the killer had more time. The scene was one of utter horror. Her throat was cut to the spine. Her face was hacked beyond recognition. Her breasts were removed. Her abdomen was opened, organs arranged around the room. Her heart was missing. It was the most savage of all the murders. After Mary Jane Kelly, the killings stopped as suddenly as they had begun. The police, under pressure from the public and media, investigated hundreds of leads. They flooded the area with officers. Suspects included butchers, surgeons, sailors, and immigrants. Wild theories pointed to royalty, artists, or even a female killer. Prominent names considered at various times included Montague John Drute, a barrister who died by suicide, Surin Klosowski, also known as George Chapman, a poisoner, and others. But one name stood out in confidential police memos. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish-Jewish immigrant born Aaron Maud Kosminski on September 11, 1865, worked as a barber in Whitechapel. He lived with his family in the heart of the murder district. He was known to have severe mental health problems, including paranoia, auditory hallucinations, and a hatred of women, particularly prostitutes. He was committed to Colney Hatch Lunatic Asylum in 1891 and later to Leavesden Asylum, where he died on March 24, 1919. Assistant Chief Constable Sir Melville Macnaghten named him in an 1894 memorandum as one of the top suspects. Senior officers Sir Robert Anderson and Donald Swanson also strongly suspected him, with Swanson noting in marginal notes that Kosminski had been identified by a witness, but the identification was not pursued due to the witness's reluctance to testify against a fellow Jew. Kosminski fit eyewitness descriptions of a young man of Polish-Jewish appearance with dark hair and eyes. He lived nearby, had access to sharp razors as a barber, and his institutionalization coincided with the end of the murders. For over a century, the case remained unsolved, with theories multiplying. Then, in the 21st century, a breakthrough emerged. In 2007, author Russell Edwards purchased a bloodstained shawl at auction. It had reportedly been found near Catherine Eddowes' body in Mitre Square and passed down through the family of policeman Amos Simpson. Edwards had it forensically tested by Dr. Jari Louhilainen and others. Initial results and further peer-reviewed analysis in subsequent years, including work published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences, revealed mitochondrial DNA matches. Bloodstains on the shawl matched a descendant of Catherine Eddowes. Semen stains matched a descendant of Kosminski's sister on the maternal line, with reports of perfect or near-perfect matches, including 99.2% and 100% on key strands. Kosminski's physical description matched. While critics point out limitations of mitochondrial DNA, which is not unique to one individual, and questions about the shawl's exact chain of custody, it remains the strongest scientific evidence linking a named contemporary suspect to one of the crime scenes. Descendants have called for a formal inquest. No other theory has produced comparable physical evidence. Aaron Kosminski was a man broken by mental illness, poverty, and the brutal environment of the East End. His inner demons likely drove him to prey on vulnerable women whose lives had already been shattered by the same system. The victims were not mere statistics or prostitutes in headlines. They were daughters, mothers, sisters, and friends with rich, tragic backstories, as detailed in works like Hallie Rubenhold's The Five, which humanizes them beyond their deaths. Their murders exposed the horrors of Victorian slums, spurring some calls for social reform. The fog of Whitechapel has long since lifted, but the story endures. Through painstaking historical research, witness accounts, police files, and modern DNA science, the most compelling conclusion is that Jack the Ripper was Aaron Kosminski, a tragic, monstrous figure who walked those same alleys with a razor in hand, vanishing into the night after his brief reign of terror. The women of Whitechapel finally have a name attached to their killer, thanks to persistence and the power of evidence across generations. Their suffering reminds us of the darkness that can hide in plain sight and the enduring quest for truth and justice. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave your comment below. Thanks for watching.